All right. So good morning, everyone. I'm Special Agent Jal Bukhanda with the FBI Albuquerque Division. Joining me today are a few of our community and law enforcement partners who are supporting this campaign. Albuquerque Mayor Tim Keller, Albuquerque Police Chief Harold Medina, Acting United States Attorney Fred Federici, Dr. Harold Bailey, President of Albuquerque Branch for NAACP, John Moya, Director of League of United Latin American Citizens and National Education Service Center in Albuquerque. Marshall Martinez was not able to make it, but he definitely wanted to be here at this event. He's the Executive Director of Equality for New Mexico. City Councilor Lance Sena, representing the Asian American community. So in recent years, the FBI has seen an uptick in the number of incidents related to hate crime. The FBI last week released hate crime statistics for 2020. The FBI last week also saw that unfortunately in New Mexico, it has experienced a steady rise in hate crimes in the past several years, especially with respect to race. Law enforcement agencies in New Mexico reported 55 hate crimes incidents last year, up from 50 reported the previous year. The FBI investigates hundreds of these cases across the country every year, yet hate crimes are often underreported to both federal and local law enforcement partners. The reason might include distrust of law enforcement, or perhaps a victim isn't sure what a hate crime is or how they report it. And that's why we're here today. For the next several weeks, as part of a nationwide campaign to raise awareness and encourage reporting, the citizens of New Mexico will see messaging on both social media as well as Albuquerque city buses, as you see behind me, with our message, stop the hate, be heard, report now. It will hopefully remind and encourage everyone to report crimes to the FBI, either through 1-800-CALL-FBI or via the internet at tips.fbi.gov. So hate crimes are the highest priority for the FBI. It's part of our civil rights program, and it impacts families and communities across the board. People who identify with a hate crime victim live with fear that they could be next. For the health of our communities and our citizenry, the FBI encourages everyone to report hate crimes. So what is a hate crime? In the simplest form, a federal hate crime involves physical harm, threat, or intimidation based on a bias toward an individual or group because of race, religion, ethnicity, gender, or gender identity, or sexual orientation. The FBI's jurisdiction to investigate hate crimes is predicated on 4 federal statutes. The FBI works closely with the state and local partners, even if a case may not result in federal charges. We will continue to support state prosecutions, and we're going to support them either through forensics or anything else that might be needed to investigate that crime. We will also leverage the many working relationships that we have already established, such as the Civil Rights Working Group. It brings law enforcement and civic leaders on a quarterly basis to talk about everything that we're seeing within our communities. We want to thank our community partners as well as the law enforcement partners who will help us in this effort to raise awareness. We want to protect our communities together. So we changed the mindset of hate through education and our actions. I would be remiss if I didn't kind of mention to you the obvious, which you have a Latino in charge of the FBI's office here in Albuquerque. Sorry, Latinx for my millennials out there. Hashtag, not here, not with it yet, but I'm getting there. The FBI, like our partners, is dedicated to listening and representing the communities that we serve. We have come a long way. There's still a lot of work to be done. I know that together we will reduce the number of hate crimes in our communities going forward. So please, stop the hate, be heard, report now. With that, I'm going to turn it over to some of these distinguished guests that are here with me today, starting with Acting United States Attorney Fred Federici.
Thank you and good morning. Thank you very much First, I'd like to thank Special Agent in Charge Buhanda and the FBI for their efforts in bringing awareness to the issue of hate crimes and the importance of reporting. And I appreciate the opportunity to join him here today and to join everyone here, Dr. Bailey, Chief Medina, the Mayor, all of the distinguished guests here to talk to you this morning about this important topic. To be clear, when we talk about hate crimes, we are not talking about instances of anger or outrage or intense disagreement. Hate crimes are crimes that are motivated by hatred that are committed on the basis of a victim's race, religion, national origin, orientation, gender identity, or disability. Some may ask why the motivation of a crime matters, and the answer lies in the extended effect of hate crimes. These crimes affect more than just the immediate victim. They impact communities and broader groups of people. They impact all of us because they divide us. When one individual is victimized due to a disagreement or a mere inconvenience, it robs that individual of their sense of security. But when an individual is targeted and victimized because of their appearance or how they worship or identify or their association within a broader group, it robs that entire group or community of their security. And that's why reporting of hate crimes is so important, and I'm so pleased that the FBI has taken the lead in highlighting this issue. In addition to providing services and justice for the immediate victim, reporting allows us to understand and address a greater problem and to protect a larger community. And that way, again, protect all of us. So I'll reiterate what the SAC just told us, and that is that the Department of Justice will not tolerate hate or discrimination, and we will aggressively investigate and pursue hate crimes. But we can only do that if people report the incidents to us. So again, I want to thank everyone that's here and for the FBI for leading this campaign, and I want to thank all of our local partners, the Mayor, the Chief, Dr. Bailey, and everyone else for their support. And with that, I will turn the lectern over to the Mayor. Thank you, sir.
Well, good morning, and I want to thank everyone so much for participating in this and for being a part of a partnership against hate. And when I look to each side of me and I see members of law enforcement, the NAACP, our City Council and U.S. Attorney's Office and LULAC all standing together to say that Albuquerque stands up against hate. And we will not tolerate hate in any of its form in this city. And I think the individuals up here, I can attest, those that I've worked with and those that I've recently met, they are personally committed to this as well. And I know that since we took office, we have tried to stand firm that this should be a safe, innovative, and inclusive city. And we will never give up on that mission. And part of that is, of course, creating awareness. As has been mentioned, that we know there was an uptick in lots of types of hate crime and discrimination over the pandemic with associated anti-Asian hate, whether it was the ebbs and flows last summer with anti-Black racism. And also, of course, you know, my family and I celebrated Rosh Hashanah last night, so Shana Tova, and we still every year have a couple examples of anti-Jewish hate. And so, unfortunately, it's still part of something that is in central New Mexico and throughout the state, and that's why we need to remember to call awareness to it. And so one way we can do that is make sure that everyone knows there is a place to call. And there is a wonderful Federal Bureau of Investigation behind the phone number and the websites that we're now displaying on 6 of our buses. They're going to be rolling throughout town. Now, also in Albuquerque, we do have our own Office of Civil Rights, which takes complaints, including hate crimes, and often actually forwards them to the FBI and works with the U.S. Attorney's Office when necessary. And we also try and provide various language translation capabilities for that office in the city. So we want to encourage everyone, just find a place to report. It could be this one, it could be another place, but just make sure that no hate crime goes unreported. because one of the biggest challenges we have is actually finding the perpetrator or getting, some sort of evidence or some sort of, breadcrumb trail that we can follow to prosecute. So that's why it also takes even bystanders who see these things happen. Please do not be afraid to step up. And with that, again, I just want to thank all the partners that are a part of this and for being out here today. Thank you so much. And I think Chief Medina up next.
Thank you, Mayor. I want to thank the FBI for having us out here today and everybody for allowing us to talk about a topic that sometimes goes untalked about in our community. When I took over as Chief of Police, one of the first programs I implemented was our Ambassador program. The reason we implemented this program was the fact that I wanted to ensure that every voice in the community is heard, that far too many times voices weren't heard and there was a fear of law enforcement. I think it was summed up best earlier when they stated that a lot of these crimes go unreported, and we have to bridge those gaps with these communities. We have worked hard to build relationships through our Ambassador program throughout the community to ensure that they know there is a path for them to report and work with law enforcement to identify these issues when they arise. And I also want to speak about a little bit above that and just respect in the community. We can't just focus on the fact that there's so much, at times, hate crime occurring and we've seen an increase. This goes back to an everyday principle. Sometimes our community has forgotten the word respect towards others. I see it on social media every day. People criticized for the way they look, for the way they speak, for their beliefs in minority justice, and for equal treatment on everybody. I think we all have to take a step back and kind of remember what we were taught in kindergarten, how we have to respect one another, recognize different views, how people were brought up differently, and that we're not all the same. But that's what truly makes Albuquerque one great city, is our strength is in our diversity. And we want to make sure as a police department, as law enforcement with our federal partners, that those members of our community who are sometimes victimized by hate crime know that it's safe to reach out to law enforcement, and we're here to assist, listen, and ensure that these actions stop. Thank you. Councilor Sena.
Thank you to our chief. I'm City Councilor Lan Sena, and specifically speaking to the Asian American community. I know that we did a protest or gathering to really speak to our Asian American Pacific Islander communities, stating that do not make the predetermination yourself, to please report it, regardless of how you feel, if it is a hate incident, discrimination, or a hate crime, report it. And especially to those who witness an incident and believe that it is a hate crime, you should also report it. To my Asian American community, Pacific Islanders, really wanting to speak to you all, that my commitment is really speaking to our language access component and also making sure that City Hall is as welcoming as we can make it. Again, please do report these crimes, as we have heard that the rise in hate crimes across the nation is almost to 8,000, the highest it has been in over a decade. And why that is important to note is that that is probably an underreported number. And so we are asking all of our communities, whether you're Asian American, Pacific Islander, our Black, our Hispanic communities, our Latinx communities, our LGBTQ communities, to please report it to either the city and of course to our FBI. So thank you.
Thank you. I'm Harold Bailey, president of the Albuquerque NAACP. I'm here to support the FBI in their effort to educate and bring awareness to hate crimes, particularly against the Chinese and Asian Americans. I'm working with State Senator Harold Pope Jr. to frame some legislation to combat this phenomenon. Thank you very much.
Okay. With that, do we have any questions?
I've got a couple of them over here.
Sure.
Sir, can we fix this real quick? I apologize.
There you go.
I'm not sure what is happening.
First question is, how many buses will be involved in this campaign? Then I have a follow-up question.
So it's going to be one that's fully wrapped and two others that are going to have one on one side and the other on the other side of the
Three
bus.
buses?
3 buses total.
Okay. Second question is, recognizing that one hate crime is one too many, how do we know that the hate crimes in New Mexico, specifically New Mexico, that the uptick, which isn't startling, how
Sure.
do we know that that's not a result of your campaign and people just, they're reporting it because you're getting the message out?
So one thing that I think that I've seen throughout the years, and this is not just specific to New Mexico, but everywhere, is the fidelity in the numbers, right? So before I did this job, I was a school teacher, majored in mathematics, so all about the numbers. But I'm not sure that how we've been collecting that data has been accurate throughout the years. So I think before we can kind of see, did we see an uptick because we had a campaign and we asked people to actually do the thing that they needed to be doing if they're a victim and letting us know? Or is it because it's truly now going to start reporting a number that means something and one that we need to really focus on to try to bring down in the opposite direction? So I think we're somewhere in between those two things right now, that not having true fidelity in the numbers that we've had in the past, campaigns that'll hopefully get us better numbers, better stats, and maybe 2 years from now when we're doing this again, we're going to be having a good news story about how we drove down hate crimes across the state. Anything else? All right.
Speaking of numbers, you know, how many resources is the FBI putting towards this? Either just like call centers or agents in themselves. We all know that APD is not as strong as they want to be in numbers right now. So how many are you guys committing to this program and this campaign?
So when we're talking about numbers, especially when it comes to hate crimes, it's a whole of office approach. But it really kind of starts with that first reporting of that incident. So it's going to be that state, local partner that's going to go out, or even federal, because we have a lot of Indian country here, that starts to make that initial determination of what it is that we have. Do we have an actual hate crime that is very clear? Do we have a hate incident, such as the example that we unfortunately saw in Santa Fe with the swastika graffiti? We don't have a subject at this point, so unfortunately we have to label it for what it is. But that doesn't mean by any means that Santa Fe PD is not investigating that. They're trying to find out who that person was. To include the rabbi just wanting to take the different approach. Let's have a conversation. I've talked to Dr. Bailey about this. A lot of what we're going to be doing related to this campaign is educating folks. And the chief mentioned and kind of hit it right there, right on the nail, which is that if we don't start remembering the basic things of being decent human beings towards each other, then we're missing the mark, right? A lot of this has to do with education. But when it comes to resources, I know everyone up here would say the exact same thing. We're going to throw everything at it because hate is just not tolerated.
And then, I don't know if this is a question for you or someone else. Who chose these buses specifically? Is it certain routes that hate crimes have been committed on, or certain communities that should probably hear it the most? Why these buses and which routes?
So I can't speak to the route specific, but as far as the campaign, and I'll turn that over to my partners here as far as the routes, but the campaign itself was something that the FBI is doing nationwide. And I wanted to make sure, being new here to New Mexico, that we did our part as well. So I wanted to get in front of it and not kind of behind it. I saw that this exact same display started in San Francisco, focusing there because they have a lot of hate crime related to the Asian community. And I knew that that's something that I wanted to carry over here and put it out there as well. For the most part, like everything else, comes down to dollars and cents. The FBI said, based on your size of office, this is what you should get. I pushed back and said, no, that's not good enough. Because the citizenry here of New Mexico means that much more to me. So we decided to go big. And we're going to go big not only on the buses, but on social media. You guys already see us on billboards and such. But like I said, hashtag not with it yet, but I'm trying to get us there. One day I want to be like the chief and have my own 90,000 followers on Twitter. I know I'm not far from it, but if I get the right message to the people and then they're reaching out and they know how to get a hold of us, then we're doing our job. But as far as the routes, Mayor, do you have any insight on that?
Danny, do they rotate?
They do rotate.
Yeah. The short answer is all our buses rotate, so it'll be all over the city.
I do have another question. I know a lot of these hate crimes are underreported, but you did mention that there was an uptick from last year. of about 50 reported cases. What are the ethnicities? Are they against Asians? Are they Latinos, Latinas? Is it against a specific religion group or sexuality group? Do you guys have the details on those?
So the one thing that, unfortunately, hate has no boundaries and it's diverse. But our biggest groups here in New Mexico has been hate crime related to Indian country. So a lot of Native Americans, to include a lot of Hispanics as well. Right? I'm sorry, I always kind of don't know what to say when it comes to Hispanics, because you go, I was Hispanic, then I was Chicano, and then I'm Latino, and now I'm Latinx. So sorry about that.
Are most of these hate crimes happening on reservations or near it, or are they happening more in the city? Where are these actually happening?
It's both. Unfortunately, like I said, hate has no boundaries. Yes.
I noticed there was a case that the FBI is investigating in Mount Airy, a family that found a burn cross outside their home. I don't know if there's any update if they were able to find the person responsible in that case.
So still looking for who's responsible. It's one piece. We've been coordinating with the local PD there. We've also been coordinating with Mr. Federici's office as well. And it's one of those that once we learn the specifics, we're definitely going to go and push everything forward. The Mountaineer Police Department has been doing a great job of just trying to figure out what those details are. They've been in touch frequently with the victim as well, and so have we. And it's one of those things, as soon as we find out what the pieces that we're looking at, then we will make sure that someone pays for what they've done. But we're not quite sure yet whether we had a hate incident or did we actually have a hate crime yet.
And then as far as the resources, you guys are going all out. Do you have a specific number of at least FBI resources that are going to be here? You did say that they were allocated depending on the city. Do we have like either a dollar amount or, you know, an amount of people within the office once it does reach you guys?
So I would say on the one thing on the dollar amount, so the city gave us a good deal. That's all I'm going to say. I'm going to say how much they actually charge us for it, but we got a great deal because we have great partnerships here. But a resource is not going to be an issue, right? Because we're going to do what we need to get done to get the job done. So, yeah.
I think it's more of an interest of how much resource is putting into it. I mean, I think that's the question that everybody else.
So I think when they first started, it was somewhere around the range about $25,000, and I pushed back because I talked to Frank, so that's just not going to cut it for the type of money that we want to invest to get the message out. So we may have more than doubled that just to start.
Perfect.
But
and then how long will we see the buses?
For 6 months.
Perfect. Thank you.
All right, do we have any more questions? Okay. We're good.
Thank you.